What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2 of the Marketing Monday. I've got a rock star female entrepreneur leader. She does a little bit of everything today. I'm really excited for this podcast, so please help me welcome Melanie Wilt from Shiftology Communications. We've had a little technical difficulty getting up and running today on my end, of course. But Melanie, thank you for your time coming on here today. How are you feeling?
Oh, you're welcome. It's Monday and the sun is shining, so I have no complaints. It's a beautiful day to be alive.
Amen. Melanie is down in her new office down at Cohatch. Tell me a little bit about the atmosphere. What's it feel like down there?
Oh, it's really fun. I mean, we moved in about a week before we had to flip the switch and go to our home offices for this COVID pandemic. But it's a really fun vibe. There's a lot of energy. And I know that when we have others in here working, it's going to be even better. But just really laid back, and the co-working atmosphere works perfectly for us. We've really always worked this way. So to have other people around us who are working the same way we are helps to build some energy for us as well.
Absolutely. The energy down there is through the roof. I mean, I was down there the other day when nobody was even there, right? Nobody was even in the building, but I'm like, this is dope. This is awesome. This is the spot. So good stuff. Good stuff. I appreciate it. I know once we get open back up, the community is going to be rocking down at Cohatch. That's for sure. So Melanie, I've got a list of questions I want to ask of you today. But first off, I want to share that I have a ton of respect for you. Mainly because every time I've seen you, every time I saw you out in public, you've always got a smile on your face, right? You always bring positive energy, regardless of what's going on. And that's one thing I really appreciate about you. So first question for you, Melanie, tell me a little bit about yourself, right? What does day-to-day look like for you? How does running the business, being an elected official, all that stuff, what's a day-to-day look like for you?
Okay, so I'm the Chief Experience Officer at Shiftology Communication, which is a business that I founded in 2008. So we're in our 12th year of business, which is really exciting. And about 4 years ago, I ran for county commissioner and was elected. And so I'm finishing up my first term as an elected official. So I really have essentially 2 full-time jobs. The first is, my business is obviously very important to me, and I work in and on the business every day of the week. And as a county commissioner, I serve in that capacity, and I'm in there several days a week with meetings. But it works pretty well to go between, because I can. Both of my offices are in Springfield. I can go back and forth between offices, and I'm very virtually accessible. So I've always got my phone, I've always got my computer, I'm always tapped into a means to communicate, and being a professional communicator, I guess that helps. So I work from wherever I am on the most important thing in front of me at the time. So some days that's the business, some days that's the community. Most days it's a little bit of both. And PR and politics aren't really all that far apart. So my mind can work on both of those things at the same time.
So I would say having the background in the PR probably gave you a little leg up on the campaign. I bet that. What was it like running? I mean, because you've had your own PR firm for 10 years now? 12 years. So what was it like campaigning for yourself? Did you have like tons of ideas and you just knew you probably had a strategy before you even hit the ground, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had run campaigns prior to me running one for myself. So I think the big difference and the hardest part was actually being the candidate.
Yeah.
And not being able to be behind the scenes telling myself, here's what you should say, here's what you should do. I actually needed to take a step back and listen to others to help guide me, so that I didn't make too many assumptions in the way I did things.
So 12 years into running your own business, what were you doing prior to that?
I have worked in agricultural communication my whole career, except for the 2 years prior to starting my own business. I was the communication director at Avitech, which was a nonprofit incubator for technology, so military technology. They did computer modeling and simulation for jet engines.
Wow.
And as fascinating as that sounds, it was not my life's work. I am in love with the biosciences. I love life science, anything that sustains life. And so my career up to that point had been really focused on food and agriculture, and I missed that very much. So I was fortunate enough for Avitech to be my first client. So I left that full-time position with them as a client, and then quickly got my second client, which was an agricultural cooperative. And that just rolled from there. And that was in the recession in 2008. So just as I started my business, the economy tanked. And at that point, I just went, oh my gosh, I might have made the worst mistake ever. But I figured if I could survive and run a business during that time, then I could probably make it anytime. And here we are again.
So like that's a ton of different experience right there. And with everything that you've been through and everything that you've done, I know that, so where I'm at, in the baby steps of my entrepreneurial journey, started my own business, doing my own thing. It's just like, I just felt like I'm wired a little bit differently than most people. Not that I'm better or less than or anybody like that, but I just know that through my own experience, right? My definition of what I view as success has changed so many different times, right? When I was going to school, it was like, oh my God, I just can't wait to graduate. Once I graduate, everything will be good. And then I'm like, oh, now I got to get a job. Now I got to pay these bills. Now I want to start this business. Now I want to do all this stuff. So with where you're at in your life right now, speak to a little bit of how your definition of success has changed, and what does the definition of Melanie Wilt's definition of success look like today, right now?
Okay, well, success to me is the feeling that at the end of the day, my time and energy was spent on something meaningful. That may sound like the definition of purpose to some, but it's the definition of success to me. That something meaningful could really vary depending on the day. It might be spending quality time with my daughter at a volleyball tournament, or it might be launching a campaign for a client. It may be being part of a decision that's going to help put our community on the best footing for the future. So it's really making sure that everything that I do is meaningful and not just biding time.
It sounds like a part of that, if what I'm hearing correctly, is it's a lot to do with, are you making the world a better place? Right? Are you contributing to society? Are you helping other people? And when I'm quite honest, like my definition of success is usually somewhat self-centered, right? It's usually focused on how can I get to where I want to be, or how can I accomplish the thing that I want to do? Have you ever went through that state of mind of like, I'm sure like when you're growing and you're building and you're doing, like your definition of success may have been like, was there a shift from where like you were originally focused on getting yourself to where you want to be? Because I would assume that now you're where you want to be, so you can kind of reshift that thinking. But am I onto something there?
Yeah, to some degree. When I very first started out and I pursued agricultural communication as this niche area that I was really interested in. I'm a farm girl, and so my passion for the farm and for agriculture is really what kind of drove me. It still drives me every day. And I can remember early on, I said, I want to be the spokesperson for the Ohio Department of Agriculture. That was kind of the goal for me. That was a title that I wanted to hold. It was a position that I aspired to obtain. And I had that job when I was 27 years old. Which was pretty cool. But it was obviously a perfect fit for me at the time, and it was a perfect fit for my skill set and where I wanted to be, and I learned so much in that position. But at that time, I remember going, man, I'm going to have to come up with some different goals. I'm going to have to figure out what the next thing is for me. And it became less about where I wanted to be and more about how I wanted to enjoy what was in front of me. Because I think we can get really focused on an external goal and forget about what we need to do day after day in and day out to fulfill that sense of purpose every day. So I'm not always looking forward to the next thing, but instead, what am I doing right now that I'm really enjoying? And so once I had that position, I guess I always kind of thought, well, the next natural step at some point was going to be to start my own business. One of the challenges that I had is that a lot of PR agency jobs or director of communication type of jobs in regulatory things, agricultural things that I was interested in are all in Columbus. And my heart and soul is on the farm in South Charleston. I love this community. I love Clark County. I want to be here. I want to experience this life and raise my family here. And in order to do that in a way that was a good balance for me, I either had to make a long commute or start my own thing. And I decided that starting my own thing was how I was going to be able to most successfully achieve that.
Good deal. Good deal. So tell me a little bit about what were some of the challenges that you faced 12 years ago starting your own business? I mean, obviously it's a big transition to go through, working the job, being in the, working for somebody else, but then like transitioning to like, okay, now I'm doing my own thing. Like tell me about some of the challenges that you faced starting out.
Yeah, well, I guess I've never really doubted myself. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I probably could use a little more humility in some cases, but I've always had the confidence that if I do this, I'm going to succeed at it. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I go out and I'm pretty employable. I can get another job. If it doesn't work out, oh well. So I guess I've always been really wired as a risk taker, so that didn't concern me at all. However, just to go back 12 years to what life was like for me then, I had a 2.5-year-old, or almost 3-year-old, and a 4-month-old. Who are now 14 and 12, so they've grown in the blink of an eye. So I had an infant at home. I went back to work, and after a few weeks, I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. My kids were still going to the sitter. I still was in the mindset of working full time, but that was the time in my life when I just felt like, okay, this is time to make this change. And they're young now. And once they get to be a little bit older, then hopefully I'll have the freedom and the flexibility to be involved in their lives as much as I want to when they're doing sports and being active in school. And it's been pretty cool to realize that now. I have missed very, very few sporting events for travel or activities. It happens from time to time, but the kids and my family can really be the center of my life.
So the kids have saw everything coming up then, huh? Do you think has that been a good thing or bad thing for the kids? Do you think they're wired for entrepreneurial now, or do they think mom's crazy, or do they like, oh my God, I don't want to be like her? What do they think?
Oh, I think it's a little bit of both. I think every kid thinks that their parent is an idiot, right? Or every kid's like, oh, Mom, you're so embarrassing. I'm sure if they were watching this right now, they'd be mortified that I'm on Facebook. But they keep me grounded, that's for sure. I think that it depends on the day. My son is actually very interested in communication,
nice,
but sports communication in particular, and getting him to see the similarities between being an ESPN broadcaster and a sports PR person. It's not a huge leap, but to him, it really is right now. But he really gets it in terms of what I do. And so it's fun to hear him talk about maybe something on the farm. And they had this conversation in science class and to go, yeah, okay, he's paying attention.
Yeah.
And then my daughter is very much unafraid. If you ask her what she wants to do, one day she might want to be a surgeon, the next day she might want to be a lawyer, but she is very much a leader and was involved in student council, and nothing scares her. So she has no fear, and I think that's really fun to see. So I'm sure they got some of that from me. I'm sure they get some of it from their father, who's also a self-employed farmer, and family members who are entrepreneurs as well.
Runs in the family. They'll be starting soon, huh?
Right.
Good deal. So I think so what I really wanted to dive into and kind of talk to you about today was, of course, your startup and how you got started and stuff like that. But in particular, once you did get started, right, and you're running your own thing and you're like, holy crap, this is working. I've got belief in myself. Like, I've got clients. Like, you reach a place where you're like, okay, I can only do so much, right? As one person, I can only do so much. So and kind of where I'm at right now, I'm like, I've got all these ideas and things I want to do. And I'm like, dude, I just have to accept the fact that I can't do everything. And it's almost a depressing feeling because I want to try to do everything. I feel like there's opportunities everywhere. So tell me a little bit about what it was like for you when you started to build a team, like when you made your first hire, like how, like, was there a long thought process where you're like, man, I could get more done if I just had somebody doing this? Or how'd you hire your first person? What was that like?
Well, I always envisioned that I'd have a full service agency, and I knew in order to provide full service, I couldn't do it all because number one, I'm not an artist, so I can't do the creative implementation aspect of strategy. I'm more of a strategist, more of a communication planner and idea person, but I can't necessarily make the things look a certain way. So I knew it even early on. I was working with freelancer graphic designers who could take the ideas and help with the implementation. I always knew that I would want a full-time creative director, which I'm lucky to have in Marin Smith now. The first hire I made was actually a holdover intern from Avitech that I pulled over, and she worked at my home office for a while. I can remember having a brand brainstorming meeting sitting on my front porch swing.
Nice.
At one point. So I don't think I ever thought it was just going to be me. So that helps. I think I always had the idea that it was going to be a team of 5 or 6 in order to provide all the services that would constitute a full service agency, but not to be too big because we want to be nimble and flexible and adjustable for our clients and still to really understand them as small businesses and medium-sized businesses.
What mistakes did you do what did you make early on hiring people?
Oh, not my first. My first hire was a wonderful one. She's been great, and she continues to be a friend to this time. I've had some amazing employees and interns over the year who go on to do awesome things. We have one gal who worked for LinkedIn for a while, is now working at Facebook.
What? Good deal.
I have got a former employee that's the PR director for Certified Angus Beef. We've got the deputy director of National Trail Parks and Recreation who once worked with us. So we're just, I feel like each time somebody leaves us, they go on to bigger and better things. Of course, in the beginning, you do those things that everybody tells you not to, be slow to hire and quick to fire. I'm sure I was way too forgiving on a couple of tough decisions that I needed to make. Because really, in making those tough decisions, it makes everybody else's job easier and more secure. But I definitely lose sleep over those. With a small organization, it's really easy to get very close to people. They're like family to me. And so I try to treat them that way. And I don't have a huge social network outside of work because I spend an awful lot of time at work in both of my positions. And the community to me is kind of my social network. Yep. So those relationships, those friendships mean an awful lot to me. And I don't know that there's anything I would do differently there, but I know some entrepreneurs and business owners aren't wired that way and probably sleep better at night than I do when the tough decisions come to pass.
Yeah. Yep. So what did you do to decide? So like, obviously when you start for me, let me step back. When I started my own business, I'm like, I'll do anything I can, right? I'll do this. I'll try that. I'll try this. I'll try that. And now I'm like, okay, I'm realizing that I enjoy doing certain things more than others, or I like working with other, certain types of people more than others. In your experience, what was it like for you? And how did you decide to like niche down to where you're like, okay, these are the people I serve. This is the greater good I want to cause in the world. How did you niche down?
I actually kind of expanded out. I started with a niche and expanded from there. I'm actually an agricultural communicator by training and education. Okay. My degree from Ohio State is in agriculture. So I had a major in agricultural communication, a minor in production agriculture. So I really started my niche before I ever started my business. That's what I know. That's what I do. That's what I'm good at. That's what people come to me and ask me about. So, the truth is, though, that expertise in agriculture easily translates into other complex areas. Anything related to science, especially life science like health and wellness, horticulture, finance, food processing, any kind of complex industry that you can think of all of the processes and tools and skills really lend themselves nicely to learn about communication. At one point, because all of my jobs had been in that area, and then I went into the defense contractor world for a couple years working for Avitech. For me, it was kind of letting myself understand that I can apply these skills to anything. I know about communication as well as I know about agriculture. And so I even went and got my accreditation in public relations to assure myself that I had all of the tools that I needed to be able to do that. And that was a really helpful process for me to make sure that I could apply research and planning and implementation and evaluation to any project or any organization that I touched to help.
Good deal. That's what's up. Lots of good experience right there. Tell me, what's it been like for you facing challenges as, and I know, we all face challenges to some degree, right? And a lot of the challenges are up here, really, for me. It's like, what do people think about me? What are they talking about? Blah, blah, blah. Give me an example of a challenge that you faced strictly because being a rock star, female, political entrepreneur, leader in the community. What types of challenges have you faced just because I'm a female, I'm out here grinding, hustling? How do people view that? How have you been judged? Does everybody just naturally look up and respect you? Give me an example.
Oh, I think we tell ourselves stories in our minds, right? The story you just told sounds like, everybody out there thinks I'm this great person. And, that's not the story I tell myself in my head, that, I can always do better. I can always be a little more perfect. I can keep, I'm probably my harshest critic. But it is hard to take public criticism. I think that's probably one of the reasons that more women don't serve in elected office, because of the way that politics is now, the way that people talk to each other on social media and things like that. That's very difficult. I find that challenging. I've had the challenges with balancing parenting and business, balancing, what if my kids hear something bad about me? Or, I went through, I had a failed marriage and I've remarried and I'm, have a wonderful family life now and things are great and in balance and the way they should be. But, there's always those things, I guess, in the back of your mind that you think, people are picking at. But, I think it's being comfortable with who I am and what's important to me and knowing what my priorities are day in and day out. One of the things that my mind tells me that I probably get criticized about, and I don't even really know if this is true, but as a political figure, you get invited to a gazillion rubber chicken dinners.
Dinners?
There's a banquet for everything. There's a fundraiser for everything. And when I was running for office the first time, I would get invited to something like every night of the week. And my son was playing football. My daughter was cheering, I think, at the time. And I wasn't going to miss that stuff. And so it just came down to, what's the most important thing? Am I going to go to their activity and say, I'm sorry, I can't attend your event? Or am I going to lose votes or respect from people because I didn't attend their event? And I think what ended up happening was when I would just say, my kids have something going on. I actually think that helped me in a lot of ways, that people respect that you can say no to the things that aren't the top priority. And I really respect other women who have the ability to do that. I really do. It's always been harder for me to say no to things because, like you, I think I can do it all.
Yeah, it's almost a curse, really. It is. It's like you want to do it, you think you can, you can, but it's like, oh, I got priorities, I got values, I got things I got to abide by. So, and that's a great answer. I mean, I respect that 120%. So, and I think that a lot of people view successful people as somebody who just everything they touch turns to gold. I mean, they don't struggle for nothing. I mean, it's a false belief, right? It's what people think. I've had people say that, like, oh, Eric, everything you do, you just succeed. I'm like, dude, my mentality is like, I fail at everything before I actually find out how to do it or do it the right way. So I'm curious, Melanie, give me, what's something that you failed at?
I have failed many, many times. Like I said, I'm really hard on myself. So I try to look at those things as learning experiences. But
Yep.
I think, making decisions too quickly sometimes has
Okay.
been a failure. There have been a couple times where I got a little uh, just liberal with finances for the business. So those have been things that I've had to learn. I'm a communicator by trade, not an accountant by trade.
Right.
So I've had to surround myself with people who keep me in line. My husband is really good about that too. Gabe is a numbers guy, and he's super frugal. And so I have learned so much just from being around him.
You build a good
Um,
team.
you know, yeah, what would Gabe think about this expense or whatever? And so it's been nice to have others around who have helped keep me in line. And so there have been times where instead of continuing on an upward track, maybe we slowed down, maybe we dug ourselves a hole,
Yeah.
but we've always been able to find our way out of that. And you just don't make those mistakes again.
Absolutely. I believe, at some point, and regardless of what you do in life, you have to be able to take a risk. You have to be able to accept the fact that sometimes you're going to fail, or you might look dumb, or people are going to judge you or criticize you. But I think that the ones that are able to make those calculated risks and learn from their failures are the ones that are actually, out here doing something with their lives. So good point. I really like that. So at 12 years in, right, you've obviously pivoted, bobbed, weaved, done all types of different things, been successful throughout the entire journey. What does the future of Shiftology look like? And kind of tie it into, with the, in the time that we're in with the COVID-19 crisis and the pandemic and everything that's going on, what is Shiftology doing? I'm not looking for any business plan advice or anything. Like, what are you doing to adapt and continually grow? And what does the future of Shiftology look like right now?
Well, I feel like we are in a super good position right now because we were working virtually at least most of the time prior to this pandemic. So when we flipped the switch for everybody to go back to their home offices,
Yeah.
right after we had moved into this new space, it was fairly seamless. We've all worked like that. We've all been very productive like that and efficient. We know how to have team meetings that way. So none of that stuff was new to us. I know many, many businesses are, each employee is still learning how to use a Zoom meeting or manage their time in a home office space. Maybe they didn't even have a home office space. So we had all of that set up. So I feel like we are way ahead of the curve on that. We also have embraced that so much that one of our team members, Dan, actually lives in Findlay and has been telecommuting as a member of our team for years. I think he's been with us for 5 or 6 years, and he manages our virtual farm trip program. One of the cool things that we do is these virtual farm trips where we connect a farmer in the barn with a classroom of students. And we've had students in all 50 states and hundreds of classrooms, thousands of classrooms, I'm sure, go to dairy, pork, beef, soybean, and this week for the first time, a sheep farm. So they can learn, a lot of kids have never stepped on a farm before. So we know we just need to open up those barn doors and let them see, but it reduces all of those biosecurity challenges and liability issues that a farmer might have to be able to do that. So kind of say it's like everything but the smell. Well, teachers during this time are desperate for virtual content to help their students, but we had to find a way to adapt to this new realm. Instead of delivering the technology to the classroom through the teacher and a connection in the classroom, we had to open it up more broadly. So we very quickly switched to Facebook live streaming, different website live streaming and things where we could connect a bunch of people all at once. So that's been a really neat thing. In addition to that, many of our virtual farm trip clients have been coming to us going, we need to figure out how to deliver educational programming and content for other groups besides students on online. We have a 3-day conference, we have a 3-day event, and we need to condense it to a 4-hour event and deliver it all virtually. Can you help us with that? And so, I think we're super comfortable with these tools. It's allowed us to show our expertise, and the pandemic has certainly proven the need for that kind of forward thinking.
Absolutely.
I'm very glad that we've been ahead of the curve on that.
It's safe to say it's essential now, huh? That's not an option anymore. Good deal. So let me ask you this. Let's say a new company comes on, a new business reaches out to you and says, Melanie, I need customers, right? I need people to buy my thing, right? What's your strategy? What do you do? How do you help them? Give a business owner, right? Give somebody something tangible, tactical that they can use to actually get more customers from your experience.
Get to know them.
Good deal. Good deal. How do you do that?
Get to know them better than they know themselves. Get to know what pushes their buy button, what pushes their buttons, what pains do they have that you can solve. They're not going to buy anything if you don't solve something for them.
Mm-hmm. Solving the problem.
And, that's a service or a product, either one. Don't be afraid to try and fail at trying some things, but it's not as much about the transaction as it is about the customer and building relationships. That may not pay off tomorrow, but it will over time. And, there is no silver bullet.
Yep.
I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm going to hire a marketing firm, or I'm going to do this on my own, and I'm just going to pick this one thing, and that's going to be the thing. And, it's not social media, it's not YouTube, it's not podcasts, it's not traditional PR, but it's an intentional strategy to help you reach your goals. And then those things help to support that intentional strategy. So you're deploying it a lot of different ways.
I like it. Get to know your customers. What are they struggling with? Solve their problems. Good deal. And another thing you said was you got to it's an investment in the future as well, too. It's not going to happen like that. It's something that takes time, gradually over time. Good deal.
That's kind of the main difference between marketing and PR. I always say, PR is about building a relationship with that customer that's going to last over time, where marketing is more a transaction.
Yeah.
So if you're selling Happy Meals, if you're McDonald's and you're selling Happy Meals, your PR team is focused on the mom who's going to go out week after week and surprise her kids with a Happy Meal on Saturday with a little toy. Marketing is more focused on how many Happy Meals can we sell.
Yeah, I like that. Good point.
Important.
Very important.
But really different approaches.
I think that was my gold nugget from this interview right here. Let me jot that down real fast. No, good stuff. I like that. So, at kind of wrapping up here, what are some things that you're studying and learning about right now? Like what's hot on Melanie Wilt's mind right now?
Right now, new models of business. What's the next thing? We're at virtual working, we're at virtual co-working. How will business change over time beyond the Amazon era? So I'm listening to an audiobook on the Amazon era right now. And also distance learning best practices. How do adults learn best? How do we receive information best? And we're so overwhelmed with messages day in and day out. How easy it is to tune out in the middle of a Zoom meeting or a conference call. How do we keep people engaged in those things? So those are things that are on my mind. And I'm always learning. I love to read, and I read a lot of fiction in addition to, I probably don't read as much nonfiction as I should, but I just love to get different perspectives from different people in different parts of the world. It's interesting to me to see how other people's minds work and learn from them.
Good deal.
Learn their stories.
Good deal. I'm studying. I've been trying to do there's so much technology out here. It's like, it's impossible to learn everything. It's impossible to learn, all the gadgets and all the software and all the tools, even though I would like to, so I've been kind of, taking a look at like membership sites and what can businesses do to actually still stay engaged with their current customers, get new customers, but find ways to serve those folks online. find ways to serve those folks virtually. So that's kind of where my mind's been, as building like membership sites and stuff like that, to where you can help solve people's problems in a way that they can do it on their own time, wherever they're at, safe social distancing and stuff like that. And I think that, in my business, being able to, like with our driver's intervention program, like if I didn't know how to do all this technology stuff when all this pandemic hit, we would have been SOL, because like you can't meet in groups of 20 or 30 or 40 anymore. So it's like, but because I knew how to use some technology, I was able to put together a proposal and send it to the state and say, hey, I know how to do this. Can we do this? And they're like, wow, yes, you can. And I'm like, yes, that's awesome. Which was enough just to keep the doors open, keep serving our customers, keep paying our staff, keep the ship afloat. So it's like, thankfully, and now it's like, what does the opening back up process look like? I think it's it's safe to say nobody really knows for sure right now. I mean, we're getting a lot of different stuff that everybody, everyone looks forward to 2:00 every day. What's going to happen new today? We don't know, but I think that, just like you said, I'm learning about this. What's after Amazon? How do you do this? How do you do that? And I think, when you do all that stuff and you're not scared to try and you're not scared to fail, that's how you create opportunities for yourself to succeed. So, Melanie, I appreciate it. You are, like I said, I'll say it again, you're a rock star. You are when people think of Springfield, they think of Melanie Wilt. Right? You're doing good stuff out here. Is there anything that you didn't get to mention that you'd like to before we end today?
Oh, just one thing I think a lot of folks like to say how busy they are. And this is something that I've learned over the years. And I think it's particularly common among women that we define ourselves by how busy we are. And somewhere along the line, I just said, you know what, I'm not going to use that description anymore. When somebody says, how are you today? I'm not going to answer by saying, oh, I'm so busy. I'm so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Busy is only important if it's purposeful. So, there's no reason to be busy just for the sake of being busy. So I've learned to say no and really prioritize in order to keep from just doing busy work or staying busy. And that's been really valuable to me in this time, as things have been kind of strange and there's been a lot of time to work from home and maybe more time where I'm not traveling between meetings. I'm learning to just be comfortable with having some time to do the things that matter instead of just keeping busy all the time.
Absolutely.
And
I love it.
Helps with the mental health too.
Yeah. Got to keep your mind right first and foremost, and you can't be cluttered down with stuff all the time. Good deal. So, Melanie, I appreciate your time. I know this whole purpose behind this Marketing Monday thing, it's selfish. I just want to interview people who know what they're talking about and try to be able to get gold nuggets from them and try to help other people at the same time too. And I think that you have definitely delivered on that today. I appreciate your time. It's cool to know. I cannot wait for the city to open back up, and because I'm right here down the street from you. I'm down at the Shawnee Place apartments, which is like literally a couple weeks ago. Yeah. When you guys first moved into Cohatch, I saw you guys post something on Facebook. You said, hey, we're into Cohatch, come down and check us out. And I immediately left. I walked down there, and of course I couldn't get past the gatekeeper, but I was coming down there to check you guys out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's all right. But
allowed to have people back. You can come on over. If you've got a mask, you can come in now.
I got my mask, good to go.
We're still being pretty cautious,
as we should be. So good deal. I look forward to continuing to see Springfield grow and thrive. Thank you very much for your time today. And I think that's it, folks. We're going to wrap up. Thanks for everybody that watched. If you have any questions for Melanie, I'm sure everybody knows how to get a hold of her. We got some comments here. Let me acknowledge those before we wrap up. Brian Traylor says, Melanie is so wise. Thanks for having her on the show. Most definitely. Rob Alexander says, success equals purpose. That was from the very beginning. Success does equal purpose. Great job. And then Kermit acknowledging a couple folks that were on. So good deal, guys. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week. Have a wonderful day. Done.